Hey guys, and welcome back to the Wild West Tennis Podcast, brought to you by Quality Shot Tennis. I am Fazan, as you can probably see and tell. And yes, I'm not Brad. Look very different to Brad. Brad is actually ill, quite badly ill, so hopefully he will be recovered and ready and roaring to go next week. And we have a very big guest next week, so we're not going to give any hints away, but I tell you, it's a big one. Today, just me covering, so hopefully I can fill his boots and give you guys some interesting news, info, and points as always. We're going to talk about the Americas. That's what we're going to focus on, given that it is the Americas podcast, the Wild West Tennis Podcast. So let's get into it. Before we do, remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. Also, leave a rating or review if you're listening on a tennis podcast platform, or just a podcast platform, really. Okay. First of all, we can touch upon the American players, and there's been quite a few out in action on the men's and women's side. I think, actually, let's not do it by country. Let's do it by tournament. So, ATP Tokyo, there's a few Americans that are drifting around and looking to challenge for the title. We actually have had quite a few Americans doing quite well in this tournament. So Tiafoe has progressed to the round of 16. He's playing Zapata Morales. He's been playing well throughout the last, we're talking 2 months or so, especially at the US Open, given that he made the semifinals there. He is in really good form. I saw him live at the Laver Cup against Novak Djokovic, and even though he came out second best on that day, he's a very, very good tennis player. And Djokovic played almost near his optimum level. I have to say, Tiafoe is an impressive player. And if he was playing against anyone else, or even Djokovic when he wasn't near his best, I wouldn't have been surprised if he'd come out on top, because that's the type of level that he's showing right now. And I expect him to come through that round of 16 match as well and make the quarterfinals. Nakashima has a very tough opponent against Coric in the round of 16 as well, and he continues to impress after winning his a title in the ATP San Diego Open. And I'm going to quickly go through that run, actually, because he is only 21 years of age. He's from San Diego, so he was in front of his home crowd. It would have been an incredible occasion, of course. And I have to say, he is someone who really impressed me at Wimbledon, playing Nick Kyrgios, taking him to 5 sets. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was 2-1 up in that match as well. He seems to have a bit of everything. He really does. And he does go for a second serve. He might hit a few double faults sometimes. He's pretty big from the back of the court. He doesn't always make a huge amount of mistakes. And when he's on, and he looks very, very good. And he seems to have a solid enough all-round game, which means that I think going forward, we will see him win more titles, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see him push towards top 25, top 15. Who knows? Whisper it quietly, even top 10. So he beat Marcus Giron in that final in San Diego, beating O'Connell, Gailan, Kudla, and Svida on the way there. So 3 Americans, an Australian, and a Colombian, who, of course, from the Americas as well, Gailan. So good win for him. And Gailan actually, Gailan is of course, the Colombian who beat Stefanos Tsitsipas in the US Open. So what a great little period he's having. Of course, lost in the quarterfinals, but that's fine. I mean, that's a good run. San Diego Open and the US, he beat Tsitsipas as well. He's clearly playing some good tennis, the Colombian. So shout out to him as well, being, of course, from the Americas as well. Who else? So ATP Tokyo, we talk about Nakashima. We're talking about Taylor Fritz playing against one of the home favorites in Moria. He should win that, but we'll see. Let's see how he gets on. I think Taylor Fritz, he's been a little bit up and down, I guess you could say. We'll see how he gets on. The other Americans, well, we can talk about them because, unfortunately for them, they didn't manage to progress. So we had Steve Johnson lose to another player from the same continent, Denis Shapovalov, who has been in very good form. Well, I say very good form. Let me retract that statement and say that he's been in better form in more promising form than he was even in the first half of the year, and he's slowly starting to, I think, gain some sort of confidence and also form going into next year. I don't really expect anything from him, if I'm being completely honest, this year. Hopefully he can come back next year and we see him with that confident, explosive game that we love to watch. And he's someone who is threatening to win titles because he hasn't been that type of player for a long, long time. When I say long, long time, I mean this year. Last time I remember him making a very deep run, Wimbledon semi-final last year. So we're talking about over a year ago. But he beat Steve Johnson, the American 6-3, 7-6 in the round of 32 match, and he's still going strong as well at the tournament. McDonald, another American, losing to Kwon in 3 sets. So in the round of 16, that is. He'll be a little bit disappointed not to go further. Shapovalov has Noguchi, so another Japanese home favorite. He should come through that as well. So we might see some of our American, we will see some of our American players, or American, Canadian, anyone from the Americas, potentially matching up against each other, which would be quite fun to talk about next week potentially. So that's ATP Tokyo covered. ATP Astana Open, and then we'll go on to WTA stuff. Unless I'm mistaken, there's actually not much to talk about, apart from the biggest upset, which I myself am completely gutted about because I picked Felix Auger-Aliassime, the Canadian tennis player, someone who I'm really high on. I think he's a really, really good player. I had him winning this tournament in Nur-Sultan in Kazakhstan, the Astana Open, had him beating Stefanos Tsitsipas, and then in the final and in semis, Djokovic even. How wrong I was. He lost in the first round to RBA, or Roberto Bautista Agut, the Spaniard. And Felix, I mean, it's a tight one, 6-4, 7-6, and then lost 8-6 in the second set. Tiebreaker, but he'll be disappointed to lose in the first round. And he also would have been hoping to go deep and challenge for the title. So that's a massive spanner in the works for my bracket for whoever is and does have a little bit of fun on the tennis brackets, but it is what it is. Maxim Cressy also lost in the first round to Karen Khachanov, who's been in very good form recently, of course, the Russian player. He made the semi-finals of the US Open, so there's no real shame in that, although I did have Maxim Cressy also beating Khachanov because of his rushing style. I thought maybe Khachanov might not like that and it might unsettle him, but wasn't to be. Cressy didn't mind it at all and just said, Khachanov didn't mind it at all and was just thinking, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. You're going to rush the net and I'm going to deal with it. And that's exactly what he did in pretty impressive fashion. Not someone from the Americas, but Alcaraz, the US Open champion. So I guess we can touch upon him given that he just won the US Open. I mean, he lost in the first round to David Goffin, 7-5, 6-3. Said after that the courts were a lot slower than he's used to or expected, and he should have potentially either not played it or practiced more on the courts. Wasn't used to it. He ended up losing in straight sets, the first straight set loss he's had all year, and the US Open champion will lick his wounds because this is the first event that he's gone into as the world number one, and that will hurt. And I guess I did say I didn't think I'd see him winning it because the weight of responsibility of being world number one, and maybe that played a part, maybe it didn't. Talking of other players, though, from the Americas, Christian Garin from Chile, I mean, he has had a pretty good year as well. Had a decent run at Wimbledon, beating Alex de Minaur it was in the round of 16 match. He was 2 sets to love down, came back to win it in 5. It was an incredible victory, I thought. And then lost to Kyrgios in the quarterfinals. So, look, that's a really, really, really good little run there. Since then, hasn't really been able to replicate that type of form. I'd always seen him as a clay court specialist, but he has come into his own this year in a way. He was ranked, though, last year because he had a protected ranking due to the pandemic, and that's gone away because his results have just not reflected really, where his ranking was previously. So he's dropped down, unfortunately for him. That's all on the Astana Open. So there's actually no players from the Americas left standing, which is disappointing, but it is what it is. WTA Strava. So there's quite a few Americans and Canadians. Anyone else? We'll have a quick look, but hasn't been particularly good for the players from Americas, honestly. Pera lost to Kvitova in 3 sets. I mean, it was a pretty valiant effort, you might say, from the American. In the end, losing the final set 6-4. Madison Keys lost to Rybakina. Rybakina winning 5-7, 6-3, 6-3. I think Madison Keys is just so up and down, isn't she? She really is. Not quite sure where she goes from here. Is she going to win a Grand Slam? Because she came so close a few years ago, making the final against her good friend Sloane Stephens in the final. Didn't manage to win it. It's tough. I mean, Thailand Open lost in the first round as well. US Open, she made the 3rd round, lost to Coco Gauff. Cincinnati made the semis, lost to Kvitova. I don't know. A lot of people were pretty high on her going into the US Open, given that semi-final run, but just wasn't to be. And she just looks to have maybe lost a bit of confidence now. Again, needs to regain that, needs to find a bit of that mojo again for sure. In terms of other players, well, the Canadian Jeannie Bouchard had a wild card at the Ostrava Open, and Ostrava in Czech Republic, by the way, she, in the end, lost to Bencic in the first round after coming through qualifying. Sorry, she didn't have a wild card. She came through qualifying even, if I can speak properly. And look, it's great to see her back on court. I'm just going to say that. Whether she's playing really well or not, doesn't matter to me. I know it sounds crazy, but it doesn't. It really, really doesn't. And the reason why I say that is because I genuinely just think that for me, to see her back on court playing is only good for tennis. So I'm very, very happy about that. Happy to see her playing, enjoying it more, which seems to be the case. And that's exactly what we want to see, right? We want to see players enjoying it, having fun. And that's what you want. That's what you want. So hopefully that continues. I really, really hope we do see her continue to thrive and potentially get better. And who knows, maybe, whisper it quietly, reach the heights that we've seen in the past, making 2 slam finals. Can she do that again? I don't know, is the honest answer. I'll be surprised. You just never know. She fought hard as well against Bencic. 7-6 in the first set. She won it 9-7 in that tiebreaker. Lost the final set 6-4. That happens. McNally beat Blinkova, and she's going on Parks. What a win. What a win, by the way, for Alicia Parks. Beating Karolina Pliskova 6-love, 7-6. She bageled her in the first set. That is an incredible victory. And I have to say that's impressive. So impressive. Shelby Rogers, though, wasn't able to do something similar against Krejcikova. She lost 6-2, 6-2. Krejcikova coming off the Italian Open win, beating Kontaveit. So, look, she's in form. And Haddad Maia from Brazil, of course, another player from the Americas, and has had a fantastic year this year. She really has. She lost 6-4, 6-4 to Mukova from the Czech Republic, so a home favorite. She would have had the crowd behind her. Tough, tight match, but in the end, falling short. Parks has Sakari actually tomorrow, which will be a very tough match, but I wouldn't be surprised if she gets the win. And McNally has Mukova again, could come through that victorious, and that would be a great couple of wins for both players. So keep an eye out for them. In terms of the last then tournament, I guess, to touch upon is the Jasmine Open in Tunisia. It's a great little tournament where, well, we can just say it, in Monastir, Tunisia, where Ons Jabeur is being absolutely applauded and hailed, and everyone's coming to watch her. It's great to see. There's some good players on show as well. And Lou from America has done pretty well so far. She's managed to beat Konju in her first round match, and she's actually just beaten Siniakova in straight sets, the 7th seed. She's unseeded. Great win for her. She makes it into the quarterfinals, which is great to see. So we'll see who she ends up playing. There's 2 French players in the quarterfinals, Cornet and Paris, but she won't be playing any of those. I can't wait. I genuinely can't wait to see how all these tournaments shape up. Let's then talk about some of the other players. So there's actually another Brazilian, light-handed Maiso Pagosi. She lost to Cornet in the first round, 7-6 love, but good to see some other players from the Americas putting their name forward and pushing as well. Let's hopefully get some more so we can talk about it more on the podcast. And Lee lost to Jabeur, the home favorite, the favorite for the tournament, 6-2, 6-3. The American, unfortunately, falling, but no real shame in losing, of course, in that way. So that's all of the players from the Americas from all 4 tournaments that I've just gone over. I don't think I missed anyone. If I have, then of course, do let me know in the comment section. In terms of anything else to cover, I mean, there's a lot going on because at the moment with the tour, there's the Asia swing, which has been cut short, and then now there's like this little European swing as well going on with Kazakhstan, and there's going to have we are going to have the Paris Indoor Masters as well. There's just a lot going on at the moment, so it's going to be intriguing which players play what tournaments, and it's not surprising that a lot of the players from America, especially, and Canada are playing the Tokyo Open, or even from Brazil, etc., or Chile, because that's not a massive surprise. We've seen some players like Christian Garin playing the Astana Open, which is a bit more surprising because it's in Kazakhstan, it's a bit further. Either way, though, there's a lot of players on show, and we'll see how they get on. And next week we have a massive, massive guest that, hopefully, fingers crossed, as long as nothing happens in terms of illness or availability, we should be airing that next Wednesday. We've got some fantastic guests lined up. Hopefully this will be the only podcast I do, so you guys only have to hear my voice and see my ugly mug only once on this podcast. But as I said, just covering for Brad, who does a fantastic job on the podcast. So do show the podcast some love. Do like the video. Do subscribe. Do also leave a rating or review if you are listening or watching on a podcast platform. We're going to keep it nice and short this week because, as I said, we've got a big one coming up next week. I promise. And we've got some really good guests lined up. So I can't wait to continue showing you guys and sharing this with you guys as a new segment on Quarter Shot Tennis. And it's something fresh and new to bring to you guys. So thanks so much for tuning in. Appreciate it. Stay safe and well. And we'll see you on the next podcast next week. And as I said, it'll be well worth the wait. So keep your eyes peeled. Wednesday so we are posting and releasing the podcast every Wednesday every week. So make sure you keep an eye out. Thanks very much, guys. Stay safe and well.